Hi there. Today we're going to talk about the difference in the Gen 5 Glock 23 and the Gen 3 Glock 23 in relation to slide width and its effect on holster selection. A lot of companies are putting the Gen 5 40 caliber as the same size holster as the previous generations. Glock generations 1 through 4 use the same width of slide in 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, and 357 SIG. The Gen 5 9mm use that same width of slide. In the recent release of the Gen 5 40 caliber Smith & Wesson, Glock decided to put a heavier slide on. That slide is approximately 1.08 inches according to Glock. The previous generations and the Gen 5 9mm slides were 1 inch according to Glock. On my micrometer, as I measure them, I'm getting a little bit bigger than those, but not a lot. The Gen 5 I measured at 1.0850, and the previous generations I measured at 1.0065. I've got just a few holsters out here to show as far as how the fit is between the two. All these holsters were purchased before the Gen 5 40 caliber Glocks were released. Today is going to be more of the concealed carry, personal protection. Not going to get my duty rigs out. They're all built for a Glock 22. I only have a Glock 23 in both generations, and I do not have a Gen 4 Glock 23, but the dimensions should be the same as the Glock Gen 3. So we're going to start with the Desante Nemesis. This is a size E1. As you can see, I trimmed this off for its application. Here's a Gen 3. Here's the Gen 5. So that one's pretty easy. This is a pocket holster, or you can put it between layers of clothing, such as your pants and your underwear for carry. Next is the Bianchi model 105, and it's a size 13-15. Now with this one, even the Gen 3 fits a little tight. It's kind of hard to tell probably from the video, but when you go to put the Gen 5 in, that's how far you get it before you just have to force it. Now you can force it and the leather will stretch, but I bet it's going to be hard to get out based on what we'll see later. Now this is not a 4 Glock holster. This is a generic holster that happens to fit Glock. Next we have a Don Hume H715M number 36-1 inch. This is actually for the Glock 26, 27 size, but as you can see, just sticks out the end when I put my Gen 3 in. However, when you have the Gen 5, I get to about there, and it's not, the problem isn't necessarily up here, it's just the overall tightness here. I would have to really force it in. So I'm going to say that's a no-go. Next we have, this is just an old Uncle Mike's Kydex holster. Not going to try to shove it in there. It will not fit as it is. I could probably loosen these tension screws and get it to fit, but as you can see, there's not much threads in there already. Next is a Don Hume H717 number 36. Now this is a leather holster I've had most of these for several years. With the Gen 3, even the Gen 3 fits in there tight. You can see it goes and it fits nice and snug, but it's somewhat tight. With the Gen 5, I can get to about there before I'm going to have to really force it in there. And if I do force it, getting it out is really going to be a pain, because even as it is now, that's tough to get out. Next is a Gould and Goodrich B802 for a Glock 19. I've had this over 10 years. It's a little bit looser on the Gen 3, and the Gen 5 goes right in. So now out's a little tougher, but not bad. So Gould & Goodrich, so far out of all these, other than the Desante Nemesis, would be the only one that I would feel comfortable carrying with this Gen 5. That does not mean that a Gould & Goodrich you buy today will fit a Gen 5, just that I happen to have one that does. Next up, we have a TT gun leather, slim, in waistband, Mike's Special. This is with elephant, marked G1923. You can see even the Gen 3 fits really nicely in there. But when you go to the Gen 5, you get about there, which you can see that it's got quite a ways to go, and that's already fairly stuck in there, and it wasn't all the way in. This one I may be able to get all the way in, and that leather may loosen up around it to some extent, but considering I don't carry my Gen 5 40 caliber, I generally carry one of my older guns that I've got a lot more rounds downrange with. I don't want to stretch it out and have that looser fit. Here's another TT gun leather. This is the reinforced in the waistband Mike Special, marked G19. And this one, you can see, fits pretty snug with the Glock Gen23, Glock 23 Gen 3. And when we put the new Gen 5 in, that's where I get to. So it's about the same, which shows some consistency in the craftsmanship of TT gun leather, because they're about the same. Just made this video to show you most of your holsters are not going to work for a Gen 5 40 caliber Glock. I am not generally a Kydex fan, but at this time I would say you're probably best off to go the Kydex, because usually there's more adjustment ability through tension screws and just the way they're manufactured. So be leery when you buy a holster for a Gen 5 40 caliber Glock with the wider slide. The previous generations 45 caliber Glocks, whether they be ACP or GAP, did have a fatter slide. However, the difference between the 1.08 inches and the 45 is greater than the difference was from the 1 inch to the Gen 5. So you may end up having some problems with holsters being too loose. Something else I'll point out, just because I took the measurements just to see. I measured right here on both frames and ended up with the Gen 5 was approximately 2/100ths bigger than the Gen 3. Now I went and started measuring some other Glocks I had, and I found that the Gen 5, this kind of shoulder here, was bigger than every other one. Now I don't know if that is the way I measured it. I measured them several times and came up with pretty much the same numbers. But this could be part of our problem also, if they are slightly bigger. Glock on their website does not mention a width for the Gen 3. And on the Gen 5, they mention the slide width, which is what they mentioned for the Gen 3. But then they mention the widest point, which is down here at the flare. I'll try to hold these up where you can see the difference and how substantial that is. Do it side by side. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll do the best I can to answer them. I'm not the end authority on this, and these are just basic observations. So be safe.